Hey, what's up, world? It's your boy D Shrimp, everybody, fake baby daddy, voice of the street, man. And today we go be in Florida with it, y'all. So hit that like button, y'all, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it, y'all. I'm gonna be telling y'all the story of this 28-year-old woman named Julia Banks, y'all. And let me just tell you what she did. She loved animals, y'all. If she found the bird and its arm was broke, she'd nurse it back to health. Raccoons, anything. She had a house full of animals, and she just nursed them back to health and made pets. Some of them she released back into the wild, and then some of them she didn't. Out of all things in the world to try to keep as a pet, y'all, this woman tried to keep an alligator as a pet, y'all. You hear me? I'm going to say that again. A alligator as a pet. Now, just from that right there, I ain't got to tell you what color this woman is, y'all. I don't have to say it. Well, this white girl, y'all, goes out one day and find a baby alligator. I guess the mother had left it or something, and it was real little. So she picked it up. He's little, he's cute at this age, little bitty one, and she feeding it. She keep this thing 5 years. In 5 years, it grows from a small alligator to a real big one. And guess what she was keeping it at, y'all? In her swimming pool. Not only is she keeping it in her swimming pools, she's swimming with the damn alligator, playing with it. The alligator at first, when he was small, and he got a little bigger and bigger and bigger, he was still showing her affection and not eating her because she's feeding it, right? But then he started getting too big. Now she started feeding him more and more food, so she started feeding him whole chickens, y'all, and he gulped that down like it ain't nothing. She probably had to throw him too. That should have been her first hint. Oh, he getting too big now. He snapping in the air like that. That's too close to him biting your ass, right? Now, she been swimming with him all the time long. She's swimming with him, and now he's getting hungrier and hungrier. Now he don't look at her the same like she the one gonna bring the food. He looking at her like, this bitch here might be pretty good. I eat them chickens, but shit, I can't eat this bitch, Shit, if I bite her, I can eat her up with a few bites. But she don't know this because she can't read the mind of a fucking alligator. All she knows, she been raising him for 5 years. He's swimming with her. He let her do this with her and all that. She thinking everything cool, y'all. I ain't got to tell y'all this damn alligator ate this woman up, y'all. And just completely ate her up. I'm going to let y'all see some of this, and then I'll come back with the rest of my thoughts, y'all.
911, what's your emergency?
Help! Somebody please help me! There's an alligator attacking my neighbor, Julia Banks!
Stay on the line, help is on the way.
Is she conscious?
I don't know. She's screaming, but then she goes underwater.
He's doing what they call the death roll.
In the quiet town of Clearwater Springs, Florida, a backyard sanctuary became a scene of primal horror. For 5 years, Julia Banks had nurtured a creature of ancient lineage, an alligator named Reef, from a vulnerable hatchling into a formidable predator. She believed she had tamed the wild, that love and care could bridge the chasm between human and beast. But on a sweltering August afternoon, that fragile illusion shattered, revealing a truth as old as time. Nature, untamed and unforgiving, always reclaims its own. This wasn't a zoo, not a wildlife preserve. This was her home, and in her own backyard pool, a beloved pet would become an executioner. You're watching Animal Reckoning, where the most shocking animal encounters are brought to life. If this story grips you, make sure to subscribe, like, and share, because what you're about to see is only the beginning. Julia Banks was just 28 years old when her life was tragically cut short in Clearwater Springs, Florida. This was a town known more for its sprawling citrus groves than for the raw, unpredictable drama of wildlife. Yet Julia was a familiar face, a local hero in her own right. Her passion for animals wasn't just a hobby, it was the very essence of her being. Orphaned raccoons, abandoned possums, injured egrets. She took them all in, her home a constant revolving door for creatures in need. But among the countless rescues, none had burrowed into her heart quite like Reef. She discovered him 5 years earlier, a tiny hatchling barely the size of her hand, near the murky edges of the Appalachian River. He was just 8 inches long, with soft striped belly scales and eyes that seemed to bulge with a fragile vulnerability. Most people would have recoiled, their instincts screaming danger. Julia, however, saw only helplessness. She scooped him up, a delicate bundle of scales, wrapped him gently in a towel, and brought him home. She named him Reef. Friends would later recall the instant, almost uncanny bond that formed between them. Julia would joke, her eyes alight with affection, that Reef had imprinted on her, like a duckling on its mother, convinced she was the only parent he had ever known. Through her animal rehabilitation center, Julia secured a special wildlife permit, a legal allowance to keep and care for Reef, even as his tiny form began its inevitable transformation. And grow he did. By the time Reef was 3 years old, his length stretched to over 5 feet. At 5, he measured nearly 8 feet from the tip of his powerful snout to the end of his muscular tail. His transformation was undeniable, and it raised concerns. Wildlife officers, seasoned by years of observing nature's raw power, issued solemn warnings. They told her with blunt, professional clarity that alligators, no matter how much human interaction they received, never truly shed their primal instincts. They emphasized that fundamental drives like food, scent, and territory would always supersede abstract concepts like love or trust in an apex predator. But Julia wouldn't hear it. To her, Reef wasn't dangerous. He was different. She defied their warnings, feeding him by hand, swimming alongside him in her backyard pool, even allowing him to nap contentedly in the sun beside her feet as she read. The proof, she believed, was in the countless photos and social media posts. Images of Reef resting his massive head on her lap. Videos of him responding to her voice with the obedience of a trained dog. Her followers were captivated, some amazed, others horrified. She treated Reef like her child, one of her colleagues later reflected, a tremor in their voice. Maybe that was the problem. Yet for 5 remarkable years, nothing went wrong. Until the afternoon it did. Reef, the central figure in this unfolding tragedy, was no ordinary pet. He was a creature born of the swamp, a descendant of dinosaurs, perfectly engineered for survival. Julia had found him in the summer of 2018, a mere 6-inch hatchling, half submerged in a muddy bank along the Appalachian River, chirping softly for a mother who was likely gone. He was vulnerable, utterly alone, and unlikely to survive on his own. Reef became Julia's next rescue, but unlike the dozens of creatures she had successfully rehabilitated and released back into the wild over the years, she made a different, fateful decision with him. Under her wildlife rehabilitation license, she applied for and received a special permit, granting her the legal right to raise and house the young alligator indefinitely. Initially, he resided in a large indoor enclosure, complete with heating lamps and a custom-built pond. Julia hand-fed him a meticulously prepared diet of ground turkey mixed with essential vitamins, gently tapping a spoon against the enclosure wall to teach him feeding cues. She approached the process with the tender dedication of a mother raising a baby. Every feeding, every interaction, reinforced a dangerous idea in her mind, that Reef was unlike other alligators, that he was special, that he knew her. As Reef grew, so too did the inherent risks, a reality that Julia, blinded by affection, seemed unable to perceive. By the time he measured 3 feet long, she had transitioned him to an outdoor enclosure, complete with a small wading pool. At 4 feet, that wading pool was replaced by a converted in-ground backyard pool, which Reef used freely. Julia swam with him regularly, convinced that this shared
Look at this
activity
bitch,
fostered
y'all.
trust, deepened their bond. To her, Reef's calm, predictable movements, his unwavering response to her voice, were irrefutable signs of a profound connection. But to trained wildlife officials, those very behaviors were interpreted entirely differently, as habitual conditioning, nothing more. Still, Reef never exhibited overt aggression. Julia could touch him, float serenely beside him, even stroke his powerful jaw.
Crazy.
He would respond by closing his eyes, remaining perfectly still, as though comforted by her presence. He recognized her scent. He responded to her voice. In 5 years, he had never snapped, never hissed, never lashed out. It was easy, perhaps too easy, for Julia to succumb to the dangerous belief that he regarded her as family. For 5 years, Reef lived alongside Julia, appearing tame, even affectionate. But nature, in its immutable wisdom, does not forget, and Reef was growing. By 2023, he weighed close to 300 pounds, a formidable mass of muscle and prehistoric power. His tail alone, a weapon of raw force, could effortlessly knock a grown adult off their feet. He had long outgrown his original enclosure, and his feeding schedule had evolved to accommodate his
Look how
sheer
big he
size.
is now. Oh my
Chickens,
God, that
frozen
bitch
bats,
crazy.
fish, now
Man,
close to
she
him from a
crazy.
safe distance, never hand-fed anymore. Yet Julia continued to enter the pool with him, continued to float silently beside him, whispering reassurances, smiling as if nothing had fundamentally changed. But it had. She just didn't realize it yet. By the summer of 2022, Reef had reached an imposing 7.5 feet in length. His body was thick with dense muscle, his snout wide and powerful, and his eyes, once small and blinking with dependent innocence, had hardened, grown cold and watchful. Despite his alarming size, Julia clung to the delusion that he was still the vulnerable hatchling she had pulled from the swamp. She swam with him, spoke to him, and even fed him whole chickens, which he now consumed with thunderous, decisive snaps of his jaws. Concerns began to mount. Wildlife officers, neighbors, even Julia's closest friends started to express their unease. Kenneth Lyles, a veteran field officer with the Florida Wildlife Commission, visited her property after a routine inspection, flagged alarming concerns. He had heard about the pet gator lady and Reef. Their names were whispered in staff meetings. In his official report, Lyles meticulously noted Reef's imposing size, the conditions of his enclosure, and the subtle shifts in his behavior. But what struck him most profoundly was Julia's unwavering, almost defiant attitude. At one point, he told her flatly, "Instincts kick in. He's not a dog, Julia." She merely smiled at him, a dismissive gesture, as if she had heard such warnings countless times before. To her, these warnings were rooted in baseless fear, not fact. She insisted with an almost desperate conviction that she knew Reef better than anyone else ever could, that he was calm, predictable, safe. But the incidents began to escalate. Neighbors reported hearing loud, guttural hissing during feeding times. One man witnessed Reef rear up, slamming his powerful tail against the fence when Julia approached with a bucket of food. A terrified teenage girl, walking her dog past the property, claimed she saw Reef lunge toward the chain link enclosure, jaws wide, a terrifying display of raw power. Still, Julia refused to acknowledge the undeniable change in Reef. Online, she posted a video clip of Reef resting placidly in the sun beside the pool, while she sat cross-legged just a few feet away. In the video, she laughed softly, her voice tinged with a defensive edge. "He's misunderstood," she said. "People just don't get him. He's not dangerous. He just needs trust." The comment section, however, told a very different story. People pleaded with her to be careful, to stop swimming with him, to let him go. Some warned her she was risking her life. Others bluntly called it a ticking time bomb. Julia didn't respond to the comments, but the warnings had been given, clearly, repeatedly. And in just a few short weeks, they would prove to be more than justified. On the sunny afternoon of August 18th, 2023, the air hung heavy with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin, making every movement feel sticky and oppressive. Julia Banks stepped out into her backyard, carrying a pool skimmer and a bucket. The water in her pool was clouded with algae, and as she had done countless times before, she planned to clean it. Reef was nearby, his massive reptilian body floating just beneath the surface near the pool's shallow end. Normally, he remained calm during these cleaning sessions, sometimes curious, sometimes indifferent. But today there was a strange, unsettling stillness about him. His eyes were half closed, but his muscles were tense beneath the water, barely moving. Julia, oblivious to the faint, ominous warning signs, eased herself into the pool. She was confident, assured by hundreds of uneventful cleanings, that this was just another routine task. Unbeknownst to her, Reef was agitated. He had been fed less than an hour earlier, a large meal that had left him full, yet strangely restless. His ancient, primal hunting instincts were stirring beneath that deceptively calm exterior. As Julia dipped the skimmer into the water, Reef shifted suddenly. His powerful tail swept beneath her legs, a lightning-fast movement she couldn't possibly react to. Then his jaws clamped down her right leg with terrifying force. Instinctively, brutally, Reef began what wildlife experts call a death roll, a violent, spinning maneuver designed to incapacitate and dismember prey. Julia's screams, raw and desperate, ripped through the otherwise quiet backyard. She fought to break free, thrashing wildly, but Reef's grip was unrelenting, a vice of bone and muscle. Panic erupted, shattering the peaceful afternoon as neighbors heard the commotion and frantically dialed 911. She thought it was just another cleaning, another ordinary moment spent caring for the creature she loved. But Reef had other terrifying plans. At approximately 3:15 p.m., Clara Monroe, Julia's next-door neighbor, was peacefully tending to her garden when a sudden, horrifying sound shattered the usual afternoon calm. It began as frantic thrashing in the pool next door, followed almost immediately by desperate, blood-curdling screams. Clara dropped her gardening tools, her heart hammering against her ribs, and raced toward the fence. She peered over, and what she saw was a nightmare unfolding in agonizing slow motion. Reef, the massive alligator she had only ever seen from a distance, was thrashing violently in the pool. Julia was struggling, her limbs flailing in the water, as Reef lunged forward and clamped down hard on her right thigh. The force was unimaginable, a crushing grip of raw, untamed power. Without hesitation, Reef initiated the death roll, a terrifying primal behavior alligators employ to subdue and incapacitate their prey. The pool water churned violently, rapidly turning murky with disturbed sediment and streaks of red, as Reef spun her body underwater, pulling Julia beneath the surface again and again. Julia's screams echoed off the nearby houses, desperate and filled with unadulterated terror. "Help, please!" she cried out, her voice barely audible over the churning water. But her desperate plea was quickly swallowed by the roaring violence beneath the water. Clara's hands trembled uncontrollably as she fumbled for her phone, her voice cracking with fear as she dialed 911. "There's blood in the pool!" Clara gasped, her voice barely a whisper through sobs. "She's not moving. Please hurry. Someone's getting attacked by an alligator inside the pool." Reef, his jaws locked tight around Julia's leg, dragged her relentlessly toward the deep end of the pool. The water darkened further with ominous streaks of blood as the horrific struggle continued beneath the surface. Julia's movements grew sluggish, the fight draining from her body with every passing second. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, gathered in stunned disbelief, watching helplessly from behind fences and through windows. The piercing wail of emergency vehicle sirens soon arrived, cutting through the tense, humid air. Rescue teams prepared for the worst, but the brutal damage, the irreversible horror, was already done. Julia Banks's life was slipping away in the murky waters of her own backyard pool. Count, within 8 minutes of Clara's frantic 911 call, the first emergency vehicle screeched onto the quiet streets of Clearwater Springs. Paramedics, their faces grim, rushed through the backyard gate, accompanied by officers from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. The scene was one of utter chaos. Neighbors stood frozen, their expressions a mixture of horror and disbelief, while the pool's once clear water was now a sickening, murky expanse, discolored by splashes of blood and churned sediment. Wildlife officers moved with swift, calculated precision, wielding long poles specifically designed to control dangerous animals. Reef thrashed violently near the deep end, his powerful tail slamming repeatedly against the pool's edge as officers desperately attempted to push him away from the motionless figure floating in the water. It was a tense, incredibly dangerous dance. One misstep could have cost another life. Paramedics cautiously waded into the pool area and, with a grim determination, pulled Julia Banks from the water. Her body was limp, horrifyingly pale, and covered in a multitude of severe cuts and bruises. The damage to her right leg was extensive and grotesque. Deep lacerations and crush injuries, unmistakably marked by the bite patterns of a large alligator. Alongside the horrific trauma, there was the unmistakable sign of drowning, waterlogged lungs and labored, shallow breathing. Despite their rapid response and frantic efforts to stabilize her, Julia remained unconscious. She was rushed by ambulance to the nearest hospital, where trauma surgeons fought desperately to save her life. But the injuries were overwhelming, too catastrophic to overcome. Hours later, in a stark, sterile hospital room, filled with a low hum of medical machines and whispered prayers, Julia Banks was pronounced dead. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the community, but the immediate crisis was not yet over. With Julia gone, Reef, the once beloved pet, was captured using tranquilizer darts administered by wildlife officers. The massive alligator, now unequivocally a lethal danger, was, according to state wildlife protocols for dangerous captive alligators involved in human fatalities, euthanized shortly after capture. The once tamed reptile was put down, closing a heartbreaking chapter on a relationship that had gone tragically, fatally wrong. News of Julia Banks' death spread quickly, rippling through Clearwater Springs and beyond, sending waves of shock and profound grief through the tight-knit community.
Oh, they
Friends,
just shot.
neighbors, and animal lovers alike struggled to comprehend how such a horrific tragedy could befall someone so deeply devoted to wildlife. In the days that followed, candlelight vigils were held in her memory. Mourners gathered at the local park, clutching cherished photos of Julia smiling, often with Reef when he was just a small, innocent hatchling. Tears flowed freely as stories were shared of her boundless kindness, her unwavering passion, and her steadfast commitment to the creatures others often feared. Former co-workers from the Regional Wildlife Rehabilitation Center spoke openly, their voices trembling with emotion, about Julia's dedication, but also about the growing concerns they had quietly harbored themselves. She loved him, yes, said Sarah Middleton, a fellow rescuer, her voice breaking. But somewhere along the way, she forgot what he really was, a wild animal. No matter how close you think you are, the instincts don't just disappear. That stark warning echoed throughout the community and ignited a broader, fierce conversation about the profound risks and responsibilities of keeping exotic pets. Reef's death and Julia's tragic passing reignited a fierce public debate over Florida's exotic animal laws. Animal rights advocates and wildlife officials alike called for stricter regulations, emphasizing the inherent dangers of keeping powerful predators in resident.
That's enough, because they put so many words into a story, they just be going around. But basically, this woman here, her heart was in the right place, y'all, but she was doing the wrong thing. I mean, sometimes people say common sense ain't that common, y'all. Everybody ain't smart. They can be, you ever heard the word educated fool? They could be book smart and know everything, but they still not smarter than the average person, y'all, because they don't have common sense. That common sense will take you a long way, y'all. Now, she found it when it was little, and she started raising it. When that motherfucker got about that big, she should have been like, it's time to get him out of there. She had another swimming pool built, y'all, for the accommodate his size as he got bigger and bigger and bigger. Y'all see how big he was in that swimming pool. And she don't know what he's thinking because they never talked. They never talked, y'all. Yeah, he took her food and swam in her pool because that's where else he goes. He here. You know, he ain't got nowhere else to go. And he just like, okay. And she feed me. But eventually, he started looking at her. And she started looking delicious. He like, man, fuck these little chickens, man. I bet I bite her ass. I'm talking about he had intentions to kill her, y'all. When he clamped on her and took her in the water and did that death roll, oh wow, that was it. That let you know. Because sometimes alligator might just bite you and let go and leave you be. Might bite the part off he won't, might leave you be, you know. You might bleed to death or, you know, come out with a big bite or something. But when they want to kill you, they go into that death row. And they in Florida, a lot of times they be finding these alligators. They be catching them in the act. You know, one man had took his baby and threw it in the alligator pit. The police went looking for the baby. The alligator had the baby in his damn mouth, y'all. They fired that damn alligator up, them police. And got the baby out. Naturally, the baby was dead, but they still wanted the body because they had to have a funeral. You know, that's crazy, y'all. That's really crazy. And I say that's on her. And, man, this is shit that only white people do, y'all. I bet you can't find no nigga that got an alligator in his home. I bet you he do hear a pair of shoes. Yeah, I got some alligators in that damn closet, but they better not move. They better not move until I put them on and start walking. Let one of my shoes start moving around. I'm going to shoot the shit at it. You hear me? I'm going to kill it again. Let one of my shoes make a move. And I'll be like, did you just move? Did my motherfucking alligator shoe just moved? Oh, my God. And guess what? The more at the end, y'all, they did kill the alligator. They put it down. Anytime an alligator attack a person, they kill it. Because they know if it get used to that human blood, it's going to keep killing. So once they get a tape of the human blood, they got to put him down. They got to. And he was so big, man. I'm like, damn, what was this woman really thinking? She really thought she had built a bond with him, y'all. And she did, to a certain extent, she did. She's swimming with him, y'all. Damn near kissing him, you know, meeting in the water, putting her nose and mouth to him. Like, really? I mean, just taking your life and rolling the dice with your life like that. And like I said, I know, I cracked this joke one time before. I know white people, I know it's so hard for y'all to get killed. That y'all have to get killed by doing dumb shit like going out here fucking with the bears and be surprised when the bear attack you. Oh my God, he's attacking me. You know what somebody said, y'all, how you survive a bear attack or what you do when you see a bear. And I thought it was funny until somebody else said the same thing. I asked the lady, I was talking to this white lady in California, and she stayed in kind of cabin like in the woods, and she said she would see bears and all kind of stuff. And I said, so what you do if you see a bear? She said, you're supposed to make yourself real big. I said, how the fuck do you make yourself real big? You know? But another white man said the same thing. What they mean by real big, y'all, is you got to stand up to it. When you see it, you got, you know what I mean? Like, show no fear. You got to show no fear. Stand your ground and your territory. Like, hey, what the hell you doing over here? And the bear kind of ease off, supposed to. Unless he want to fight. Your little ass trying to, what? You swelling up with me? You little motherfucker. You 5'2", and you 5'3", and you trying to swell up. Man, cause you put your little chest out. You 5'3" and an inch taller. Man, kill you. Ain't no way in the hell, y'all. Ain't no way. Boy, I know if she go to heaven, how she go explain this? Gotta be like, ma'am, why did you have that damn alligator in your backyard? He said, I done showed it to you. I done sent people to tell you to get rid of the alligator. I sent the police over there. The wildlife done been over there. All your friends done told you the alligator getting too big, and you didn't listen to nobody, y'all. Hit that like button, y'all. Subscribe to the channel. She didn't listen to nobody. And I think she got just what she wanted. People do a lot of crazy shit for social media. Did y'all notice that she was filming all that? Did y'all notice the little camera on the little stand she had when she had her legs crossed, sitting back there? Alligator laying out on the deck, and she sitting by it. She really thought she was on something, y'all. And the alligator is the one who killed her. You know. They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Well, guess what? Sometimes they are one and the same, y'all. They are one and the same. And that's basically what happened to this woman here. Let me know what y'all think about this. Leave it in the comments, man. It's your boy G Shrimp. Everybody, favorite baby daddy, voice of the street. I'm going to point to now. Dig you later. I'm out of here.